You're not my dad, okay? Wait, you still use Kyber though, right?
I haven't for a minute.
You haven't? You haven't been using it?
No, I was using that for content, but now I'm focusing on different things.
I'm about to sign up for Kyber because they no longer allow you to use the free version or whatever. They completely like disbanded the whole free version thing.
Interesting.
Super gay.
Hmm. I still
Uh,
have like a billion credits on that thing.
do you?
Yeah.
Fuck, I may just send my prompts to you then to have you see if you can. Because I've been messing with Stable Diffusion all morning and like text to image apps and shit, trying to get these images through, and then bro, I wish I could show you what I'm fucking working on.
Hmm.
It's crazy. I've given up my health and everything for this. I've given up
Gosh,
everything. I'm not even taking my
it
vitamins.
better be worth the sacrifice.
Dude, this is the funny thing about my life is there's sections of my life where like I'm all in on my health and fitness, but then like my work and creative side just goes to shit. And then like there's this chapter of my life where like I'm all in on creation, like I'm all in on like whatever I'm building, and my like health and fitness goes to absolute like shit. I'm like not working out, I'm not taking my vitamins, I'm still like being active, like stretching every day and going running, but I'm not going to the gym and I'm not taking my vitamins. I'm
Oh,
eating a lot though. I'm eating
oh
more.
no. I
I
feel
know.
like you could have both though.
You can, but at some times in my life I have to worship chaos in a healthy way. You know what I mean? You know what I
But
mean?
I feel like you could still worship chaos and I don't know.
I am taking cold showers again,
Oh, that's good.
consistently. Because it's been raining and whatnot, so we have a lot of overcast, and so like now the water is getting colder, which is nice. So I'm able to like get into cold showers, which I haven't had those in like months. So I was actually maybe that was like causing my like severe depression. Well, there was a lot of things that was causing my depression. The whole like space of time where I wasn't creating anything was really killing me. That was fucking destroying me. So, but I'm like back. I do this, fuck, man. I do this shit where like I'll get super healthy, really fit, whatever, and then I'll have a span of like 6 months where I'm only hitting the gym like once or twice a week, and then I like do like home stuff just to stay like somewhat all right and like still somewhat fit, but like all of my attention is on like whatever I'm creating. So
Hmm.
I do feel
I
like
guess.
lost.
I mean, if it works, I guess.
I
'Cause
don't
it's not
know,
like you're
man.
throwing your health out the window, but at the
That's true.
same time, I feel like it would be ideal if you could combine,
Yeah.
interweave. You know.
Well, harmony would be optimal. To be able to like have a harmonious life would be optimal. But based on everything that's happened in the last year, I've had like especially now, I've had to face a sense of absolute disarray to like get things to try to force things back into harmony. I don't even know how to explain this. It's weird because like the way I'm creating right now is according to the moon cycles and that shifts throughout the day. So like it's a 12-hour period, but it moves every day forward by like an hour. And that like changes. And so in the next couple of weeks I'll be staying up all fucking night long working just because I work according to the moon now. So it's like soon it'll be like I'm gonna be staying up till 4 or 5 in the morning, and I don't even care. I'm like, fuck it.
Hmm.
I know
No,
it's crazy.
I need to let my creative side go because I'm a really rational, and so I think, no, I think I've been kind of in the same, a similar condition to you, if I'm understanding correctly. Just my creativity has just been thrown out the window. Literally, I had my life organized to every hour of the day, pretty much, of like I'm gonna tackle, and I was grinding so many good things, but it just threw my creativity out the door. And so I just need to give myself time to, I mean, yeah, like you said, just embrace the chaos and just allow creativity to flow. And I feel like if you're too organized with your life, you're not gonna have. I mean, I guess in some lifestyles it works. If you don't need creativity, if you don't use it, I mean, go ahead and grind, organize your whole life. But Yeah, I want to add creativity back, and so I need to
I
just
have
embrace it.
I have this theory that creativity is just organizing chaos. And it's like you have to have some sort of chaos somewhere and organize it into something. Because, like, when you think of building a house, it starts off as literally just piles of chaos. Like, piles of brick, piles of wood, like, piles of, like, concrete bags or whatever. And you have to organize that chaos into, like, some house. And so, like, to have, like, everything strictly put into, like, their spots, it's like, okay, there's no chaos to organize. Like, I can curate, I can create. Which, I'm not gonna lie. Like, my room, there was maybe, okay, now that I think about it, my room was a little, like, more chaotic. Like, there was things in places that I was just driving me nuts. And so, I put everything away to where it's just, like, almost barren in a way. And then I was like, okay, let's just create. We've gotten rid of everything. Everything's just put away and gone. And now I just have my space to, like, work and create. And it's like, that's the only thing that's there. And I cleaned up my desk. There's nothing on it except for, like, my workspace. But, like, everything else in my life is chaos. Like, gym time's out the fucking window. Like, vitamins, I'm not taking my damn vitamins. Like, eating wise, I'm, like, eating the craziest shit, but still getting my 200 grams of protein in. And, like, I'm living off of coffee, dude. Just straight up coffee all day. I'm like 10 to 15 cups of coffee and just creating.
So what do you say to those that have been listening to the podcast since day one of you preaching to do your vitamins and consistent in the gym, and now you're just throwing it out the window?
Well, I'm not like fully throwing it out because, like,
Yeah.
I'll be honest. There's maybe 2 or 3 days a week that I will take my vitamins, um, and like 2 days a week that I'm at the gym getting like a slutty pump in, like just a gnarly pump in. Um, and that's just to prevent like depression. Because, like, let's be honest, if you and I stay out of the gym for like, let's say a whole week, like we don't work out at all for a week, like nothing, we'll get depressed.
Oh
We
yeah.
will get fucking sad, man, if we try to do that shit. And we've done it before. We were like 1 week out of the gym or 2 weeks out of the gym, and we're like, I hate life. Like, I don't feel good. Our brain isn't working properly. And so I won't do that. Like, I won't go fully out. I still have my times where I elevate my heart rate to like 150, 160, and like I'm in the gym getting a crazy pump. But as per consistency with schedule, I don't know. I've thrown a lot of things out the window just so that I can create, just so I can solely focus on whatever I'm cultivating and creating. So I don't know, man. It's just organizing the chaos, I guess, in a
Yeah,
weird
I
way.
think I think it's possible. I mean, like, for example, if you're just living in a creative rampage, I guess, I think like you can work out 3 days a week. You really could do it, and that could maintain everything. You could build muscle and definitely work off of that. So, like, just when you get a free second in your crazy week, I mean, all you got to get is three periods where, like, I might need a break or whatever, and you just go and you get awesome pump, and it doesn't take a lot to kind of tackle those things, and you could apply that to any of your goals, I guess. You just gotta take a break every once in a while. You can't. I mean, in creativity, I know that from music. I mean, you can't hit it all the time. I mean, you could grind, you could be in it and in it, and then sometimes you'll just like lose it. Like, okay, you need to go do something else for a minute, and then come back to it. So
Yeah, man, it's weird. I don't know. I am doing things because, like, I feel like for the time that I was feeling like really sad and down, I wasn't doing a lot of the things that used to make me, well, used to bring me like a sense of like centeredness, I guess. Because I'm consistent with like in my gratitude journal for a while, I would just write. I would just be like, yeah, I'm grateful for whatever. And like, I didn't feel it. I wasn't like feeling the things that I was grateful for because like sometimes it's like I'd look around and be like, I'm really grateful for like my creative space, and I'd feel that. I'd be like, yeah, like that's so fucking awesome that I get to like build there. And then I'd be like, I'm grateful for my hands, like the ability to build with my hands. This is like, yeah, I really feel that. But then there was like a solid span of months where I'm like, I'm grateful for my car, I'm grateful for my like house, grateful for my like room, just like fill it out and not really think of anything, just kind of like just the shit that's around me and not really feel what's around me. So I am very intentful when it comes to my gratitude journal now, and I've also stopped touching my phone in the morning for like 2 hours. For like the first 2 hours of my morning, I won't fucking touch my phone.
The forbidden fruit.
Yeah, dude, the forbidden fruit. So,
That's good. That's good.
yeah. And I feel like that's allowing me to create. Because before I would get that first dopamine rush from my phone, and then I'd be biting into that fruit all day to try to get that dopamine rush, and then I couldn't focus on my shit. Whereas now, like, I go outside, I breathe, I like stay in the sun for like 10 minutes, and I'll just like let my mind empty, and then I'll get to my gratitude journal, and then I'll make my coffee, and then I sit down at my workspace, and I'll start working, and then I'll be like, oh shit, my phone. And so like I'll go into the other room, and it had already been like 1 or 2 hours, and I'll grab my phone, and I'm like, okay. But I'm already so fucking hyped about what I'm creating that it's like, fuck everything else. Like, whoever's texting me, I don't give a shit. Like, so maybe that's it. Honestly, that's probably why I feel so good now. Is like I'm creating and I'm not on my phone. So that's probably why I feel so much better. I blame the phone.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I was thinking, just, I mean, you could put it into so many aspects, just talking about creativity. I mean, you could put it in a religious aspect. And I know we talked about creativity before, and a lot of times there was a TED talk that I really loved that kind of described it. Is creativity, it comes to you and it leaves, and it's like you're being worked through. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
it's coming from you. And
Yeah.
it's a really interesting feeling, and it comes and goes, and you're not really in control a lot of when it comes and goes, but you embrace it when it is and you enjoy it. So I'm saying, like, and you could look at that as from a religious aspect if you're religious, but just how can you be creative, or how can you work through the spirit, or let God work through you, however you want to word it. I think you could interpret it in so many different levels if you have your whole life just planned out.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you gotta allow room for chaos, room for disorganization,
Mm-hmm.
and room for the creativity. And that way, when things happen, they can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like to think of, I'm really consistent working out, which is good. But when it comes to, like, I cannot miss it. I cannot miss this day working out. And then something comes up and I completely blow it off because I need to get my workout. And I think that can become a really bad thing. Is you got to allow room for the freedom, room for things to come up. Someone random might hit you up, or something might pop up, and you got to allow room for these things to enter your life, because it could be God if you're religious, or it could be that creativity trying to make its way through. So at
Yeah.
least for me personally, that's what I've been thinking, is just room for chaos is good.
It's
Just
weird.
don't let it destroy you. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother aspect of it. But
That's a crazy part of it because it's like I feel like in some ways like it's destroying like my consistency with the gym. But I don't know, it's just like this back and because like it when I call it the muse because that's just what it's called in the book Turning Pro. It's the difference between like the amateur and the professional. Is the professional gives himself the space for the muse to come through him, right? That's just how it's worded in Turning Pros. He calls it the muse. And it's not ourselves, it's some sort of like godly force that comes through us and like creates. And if we don't sit down in the space that we're supposed to create or give ourselves a space to create, like you have your music station where you like create your music. And if you're not seated in that station to create, you can't create music in your car driving to like the gym. You can't create music like elsewhere. Like you've got to be seated in that spot. You have to be seated where the muse can come through. And I guess like I have created this space where like when I'm sitting in that spot, like the only thing that's allowed to happen is like the muse. It's like that's it. Like this is just creation. Like creation. This is my space for creation. And I know I'm like incorporating a lot of like different things into it. Like the moon cycles is what I've started like cultivate like adding into this like space of creation, which is working really well. Like I'm like literally working according to the moon cycle, which I know somebody looks at that and they're like, that's fucking crazy. That's weird. Like that's some gypsy mischief. But it's working. Like it's genuinely working every single time. It's not like I'll sit down and it doesn't work. You know, every single time I sit down according to that cycle, it just like comes out and it's like, and I get so excited and it's so much fun, like putting these things together and all these colors and things are just like really like coming through and I'm like working with AI and like working with all these different images and like structuring this page and all these ideas and like these word prompts that I'm like putting into these because we found this other I don't want to say because I don't want to get in trouble for like mentioning another company's name or whatever, but I've been using it to like put together these like voice prompts and whatnot. And it's just like it's all coming together and I'm like, fuck man, like this is absolute chaos coming through during this like moon cycle. Whereas like there were times where I didn't work according to the moon cycle and I would sit there and I'd like stare at this for like an hour and I'd be like, I'm fucking bored, nothing's happening. This looks ugly, like this is pissing me off. So right now at least, I genuinely feel that it works and I've tapped into the muse and maybe just the project's working. Maybe the project's like coming through, but I genuinely feel that I'm just banging the muse, dude. I'm just like pulling her out of the sky and banging her, bro. I'm getting that creativity
Nice.
out.
It's cool.
It's
You know,
probably
going back to the phone, I was thinking, you know, what the thought that came to mind is, what's the? I feel like, at least for me personally, with music, the time most creative ideas come to my head, and it's in the shower. And I think
interesting.
a lot of people think the same way. I mean, you know, people are singing in the shower, and I think the biggest part of that is what's there to distract you in the shower. I mean, nothing. You're there with yourself and your thoughts. And how many people give that to themselves, that time to be alone and for the thoughts to come to them. And I feel like phones are the biggest distraction, and people are grabbing them the second they wake up and scrolling. And you can't be creative when you're scrolling. You know, you're being fed, so you can't give yourself your own ideas. And I thought that was interesting.
Well, if you think about it, the muse is input. And so if you're scrolling on your phone, you're receiving a different input. And if you don't have that input and it's silent and there's nothing distracting you and forcing input into your mind, because you're interpreting everything you're scrolling through. Like you read what you see, you're watching a visual, there's like subtitles, somebody's talking, and there's input coming in. But if you have this space where it's just completely silent and you're working on something or you're looking at your music, the only input you have is whatever you're working on or whatever comes through to build, right? So, like, the muse itself, or creation, or God, or whatever, is input if you give it the space to input. But if you're utilizing some other input, whether it be a movie, Netflix, whatever, like you said in the shower, it's an empty space. You're not scrolling on your phone. It's a time for input that can come in, just like from whatever force you want to call it. And so I mean, it makes sense to where like you have your greatest ideas in the shower because it's in like this space just to think flowing and freely. Like it just can happen. It's an input. But if you're like filling your space with external garbage input, you're not receiving that intuitive like muse to create with, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just the time and the space for thoughts and ideas to progress. I feel like we don't give ourselves enough of that
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, when I go in the shower, what's on my mind is either a song I've been working on or whatever, and I'm humming it, or maybe it's another song. And then I just start humming additional melodies to it, which transform into a new song for me. And man, I just thinking about it, I need to give myself more time to be alone with my thoughts. It's a dangerous thing. um, it's just, how else are you going to be creative? You got to give yourself time to receive your own input or the input of someone working through you, however you want to believe it.
Hmm. Dude, it's exciting. It's been really fun, honestly.
No, I'm
Like,
excited for you. That's cool.
I didn't shave until before this podcast, man. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I was like 2 days. I was like, oh shit! Like, I gotta get ready for the podcast. So, I mean, not to be terrible, but it was really just like make my coffee and everything, and make sure I did my hair. Which I'm glad that I cut it like a week and a half ago, so it still looks good. Not looking like shit. But
I mean, if you come on just like scraggly everything, you look like a mess, I'll know you did some good work.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, you look
'Cause-
at the guys who create something. I mean, all these guys who created these startups, maybe it was Facebook or Microsoft or however any of those programs started. I mean, you know how they looked. They were probably young and just scraggly and locked themselves in the basement for weeks.
yeah,
That's how it starts.
it is. It's so true. And if you think, when you think of the artist, you think of somebody who's just got a disarray of like canvases and paints and shit and like magazine cutouts and whatnot placed all over a room, and they're just like letting chaos come through them and like organizing it in some way. So I don't know. That's honestly kind of what's been happening. Which me and my brother have cultivated this theory together that God created man to create. And that like we have a great dichotomy in life: work versus play. And when we work too much, we feel like shit, right? We feel like we're not connected enough. And when we play too much, we feel bad for like indulging. But what is playful work? It's creating. Like when you actually feel like you're playing but working, it's when you're creating something. And so like when you combine that dichotomy of work versus play, you get to do like the work of the muse or the work of God or whatever you want to call it. It's when you are creating. And it's the only time you feel most alive. Like there's nothing that feels like so good than when you are playfully working, when you're creating something. And so, which the most successful people, like that's their biggest mindset is their creativity. And I think I was watching this video this last week about it. If I can remember correctly, like they did this study to find geniuses and they observed children and they found that like 98% of toddlers are technically geniuses. And then they studied them through the years and the genius would like go away. And I think by middle school it was like 50%, and then by high school it was like less than 30%, less than 20% were geniuses, and then by college it was like less than 2% were geniuses. And they tried to figure out what it was, and they discovered that it was the educational system and how it's structured. And it doesn't allow space for creative like chaos. It's so organized and so like structured that it doesn't give you space to actually create. And the people, the 2% of geniuses that were left were the people that just like didn't adhere to the organization and they embraced the chaos. Like if you look at Elon Musk, like the dude would work 80 to 120 hours a week. And people are like, that's crazy, man. Like that's absolutely insane. He's like, I don't care. Like I love what I'm doing. I love creating with all of these engineers and all of these people. Like I don't want to sleep. I don't care to sleep. And people are like, you've got to have balance. You've got to sleep. And he's like, I don't give a shit. Like I love the creation process. He loves the building process. And so it's like you have to embrace the chaos to be able to like create with it. And so I don't know, I think it's a cool idea, like the combination of work versus play is creativity.
No, it's definitely cool. Yeah, like talking about the education system, uh, one thing I thought was interesting was the idea of if you compare the education system to now and how it was maybe in the 1800s, it's exactly the same. It was
Mhm.
created for factory workers, basically,
Mhm.
and it was great for that time. I mean, we could owe a lot of our lifestyle now to what our you know parents and great parents did, but unfortunately now it's not useful. It's not useful to how we live our lives now. And talking about creativity, just before we start talking about this, I would always think creativity as, either you're in music or you're painting or writing, all those aspects in the form of the arts. But as we're talking, I'm starting to open my mind. Any form of success is creativity. I mean, you look at people who built businesses. What did they do? They created a business, and it is extreme creativity. I mean, even just in any job, a leadership position, what are you doing? You're creating, you're organizing. So I think that's a cool thought. Is just any form of success is you're creating a masterpiece, and so I think everyone needs to pursue creation, allow for the creation. Uh, in some aspect of their lives, whether it's a career you're pursuing or creating for yourself, is allowing yourself to create and build and do that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting thought, especially like management positions. Because I think back to like the time when we were lifeguards, and then I became a manager at the YMCA. And one of my biggest things was like cultivating a fun space, but also like a growth space for all of my guards. And it was like cultivating some sort of plan or creative like fun. And like I remember when I finally got the position, I was excited just because like I didn't want to rule with an iron fist. I didn't like that idea. And I had managers before that did that. And I had taken so many leadership classes at that time that where I understood how to like get people to do what I wanted them to do without like getting angry or frustrated with them and just like sandwiching the instructions in love. And like I was able to create like a really fun space to where like people would fight for shifts to work with me as like the head guard, and I love that. People are like, no, I want to work with the Tanner's Day, like let's like, because it was so much fun. Like we had a ton of fun, and it was still like a creative space where like people could just do things that weren't like always just work. And it like we got shit pay, man. We got shit pay. Like let's be honest, it was
Yeah,
terrible pay.
it was
But
pretty bad.
we loved working there just because the community was cultivated in such a way that it was like so much fun to be around each other. And I feel like with management positions especially, you have to be creative. And if you're not, everybody's going to hate working there. Like you've got to be creative. If you were just like follow the line very strict with things, like it gets boring, man. People don't want to be there. They're like, oh yeah, same shit every single day. Dick boss is coming in. But if you're like creative and like you're cultivating a space of like growth with your team that bleeds into like their other like facets of life, like they're able to do certain things at work or like projects at work, and like the team works with it. So I don't know, that was something that like I really loved about being a manager, is like the creative space that I made it. And I loved that idea of like allowing creativity in my work. And so you're definitely right about that, dude. It's just crazy to
Like,
think about.
I could agree with that 100%. I mean, I'm in a leadership position right now, and just you create that atmosphere for the people who you're supervising, and you get to choose kind of how you want to do about that. And it's all the creation process and uh, understanding that and applying that. You could literally shape how you want uh, everything under you to grow. And I would say, even, just speaking on leadership, I would say you wouldn't even need to be in a leadership position. I remember I was pursuing leadership in my job and uh, didn't have it yet, but the amount of things I was able to change and do, even from the bottom of the staff, is huge. I mean, your attitude, your work ethic, your relationships with your coworkers. There's so much things you could do, even from the bottom. You don't even need to be in a leadership position. You just got to think, whether you are in a leadership position or whether you're just an employee, what are your goals? What do you want to change about your workplace? What do you want to accomplish? And then implement the attitudes and form the relationships or whatever you need to do, and have fun with that creativity. And one thing I always tell other leaders is just I love to see whiteboards, just writing down people's names you're supervising or drawing things out and playing around and throwing things down, getting out papers and jotting. It's just creativity is a fun thing, and in any job and any aspect of your life, I think you could definitely throw it down and have fun with it and create what you want to create. That's the beauty of it. You create whatever you want to create. I mean, if you want to create an absolute hellhole, I mean, you can absolutely do that. I mean, you could do it. And that's the beauty of life is we create whatever we want. When
Mhm.
whatever position you're in, you have a crazy impact and you got to realize that wherever you are.
It's kind of wild, but I like the idea of like creativity is just playful work. It's learning how to play while you work. Instead of just working or instead of just playing, it's the combination of playful work, making it fun.
Mm. I think you got to find the balance too.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's the challenging part. Because at least for my music, I mean, I love making music, but then when it comes to the side of actually making income, there's a lot I don't like. But it's just I think finding that balance is the challenging part. But the
Hmm.
fun part is when you get that balance, that's when it starts going.
It's I think of like my childhood a lot, um, especially with my. I had an amazing brother. Like I have like one of the best brothers in the world. And growing up, I used to get really upset at him. I used to get really mad late at night because he would stay up till like 3 in the morning just making shit, just building random shit. And like he would draw me in all the time. He'd be like, "Let's build this. Help me with this. I'm putting this together." And I'd be like, "Fuck, fine, like whatever." And I'd like help him build whatever. And we'd get to bed at like 3 or 4 in the morning on a school night just because we would like spend so long like creating shit. And that was like a constant thing at my house. And then I would go over to your house and like what would we do? We would just create shit with like connects and whatnot. And we would just like build the most wild things. And like it was like no matter where I was at, I got to just build shit. Whether it was at home or with my buddy, like we just build shit. And so I am really grateful for those aspects of my childhood because I feel like it bled over into our adulthood a lot. Like we enjoy creating. And like you and I constantly try to make sure we have some sort of like realm in which we can create in. And if we don't, we get really sad. Like we're like, fuck man, life ain't it. And I feel like everybody else feels that way though. Like I feel like one of the big systems that cultivate depression is number one, not keeping your agreements, but not keeping your agreements around something you're trying to build. Like with fitness. Like if you're trying to build fitness and you're not keeping your agreements with it, you feel like shit. Say you're working on a project or paintings and you're not actually painting it, you feel like shit. Or your music, you're not actually like throwing those sounds onto a canvas of like music, and you just like if you're not doing the creation, you don't feel good. So I don't know. It's just something to think about. Is like if you're depressed, maybe try to build something and keep your agreements around that thing you're trying to build. Like I don't know, just an idea.
You know what? I just realized, you know what creativity is? It's
Hmm.
just output, input, output.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have bad creativity. It's bad output and based kind of on your input. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, going and having a bad attitude, and it's going to create, it's not going to create good things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's literally what happiness or depression is just where you're aiming your creativity. Are you letting your creativity just be this crappy, not your choice? Are you letting your creativity lead you to what you want? And that's happiness, I believe, is just having that positive output to align with you.
I guess yeah, it's because like everything's input output. This is something that I was talking with Kaylee about this last week. I was like, everything that you see in this world is input output, and this is like the idea of karma. Is like you're not gonna just like, oh, I want an apple tree right here. Like at some point in time, you would have had to plant an apple seed. and that would have sprouted an apple tree. And like that's karma. Like doing something now to cultivate it in the future. Like sending out love to get it back. And when it comes to creativity, like we have to assess our inputs. And if our input is like constant scrolling, we find that our output seems to be overindulgence of entertainment. But like if our input is like reading and writing, or like giving our space, like giving ourselves space to think, like our output will just be like that creative space. Because I feel like a lot of what we see on the media, or like we see in movies, is an already cultivated like creative piece. It's already done. And like yes, you can draw some sort of inspiration from those pieces. Like when I'm working with AI and whatnot, and trying to cultivate my pieces, like I'll draw inspiration from other people's prompts that they've utilized to like build these images. And I'm like, oh, that's a good piece, that's a good piece. Let me pull two ideas from that. And my vision is this. Let me add, like, these are the seeds that I'm going to pass through, like, my vision to create, like, what I'm building. But when it comes to, like, watching movies and scrolling, it's just this constant, like, dopamine rush fix. And you're not able to, like, give yourself the space to actually build. I mean, and that's just because the algorithm itself is structured so perfectly to continue to capture your attention. Because I think Bo Burnham said this best, is um, we've already bought all the land. All of the land is purchased. And so the next thing to try to capture, the next thing to try to like take over is human attention. Like we've taken over all of the land. So what else is there left? It's our attention. And so like the more they can get your attention on these things, the more money they can make. The more they can capture your time, the more money they can make. And so like if you look at the algorithm, it's designed perfectly to capture your attention for extended periods of time. We all know this. This is like something we can't deny. Like if you start scrolling, like that's an endless pit. There's a reason it doesn't stop. The further you scroll, it never ends. It's infinite. You can just go on forever on every platform, and it's designed that way so that it can capture an infinite amount of your time going forward. It's like painting. So if you actually give yourself the like time to paint, you could paint forever and ever and ever. The same thing with scrolling, is it's just capturing your attention and keeping it. And I think, I don't know, me personally, I feel like my attention has become a little more sacred to me. Where do I want to put it? Like, what do I want to build on? Because we talked about this the other week, is like how much time we were spending on social media. And we did the math. And for me, if I had kept up the time that I was on social media, it would be 7 to 9 years of my life. And that was just an hour and 20 minutes a day. It would have come out to 7 to 9 years of my life that I would just spend scrolling. And I was like, fuck. Am I willing to give almost 10 years, like 9 years of my life to this? To nothing. To building nothing. To just, like, that's it. And that scared the living shit out of me. I was like, no, I don't want to give my life to that. That scares me. And like, there are people who spend like more than 3 hours a day just scrolling. And like, that's so much more time of your life. Like, that's probably around like 15 years. That's terrifying. Like, you're just like surrendering that to nothing, to just like lost attention. It's fucking terrifying, man.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've learned is, I mean, it's super hard because, like you said, they've created the apps now to just they just devour you, like just endless scrolling. Like even if you only follow a certain amount of people, like maybe it'll show those first, but then it just keeps going.
Mhm.
So one thing at least I've been trying is just focusing my input. Is just, you know, I maybe go on that those things you follow, because there's obviously good things you could pull out of social media. I
Mhm.
mean, but trying and not diving into that input, choosing your input, because if you don't choose your input, you're going to be having the crappiest input and your output's literally going to be poo. It's just giving you nothing. You're going to benefit nothing to the world. You're going to waste, 9 years of your life scrolling, and you're going to die. And then what did you benefit to this world? How did you die happy? I doubt it, because you weren't creating what you wanted to create. And to do that, you have to you have to input the things you need to input to bring you there. And it's just picking and choosing and allowing yourself the time to give that output to the world, because that's what's going to bring you to your happiness.
I feel like shitty input is just the path of least resistance. Like when you're driving and you're hungry, the path of least resistance is fast food versus cooking. Like you have to make a conscious decision to go home and cook something, and it's going to take longer. But you know that the output will be greater. Like if you cook the meat, the food, the way you know you need to, you're headed upstream. Like you're going up the mountain. Whereas like choosing the fast food, you're heading down the mountain. Like you're not headed for greatness. You're not headed for like new great things. You're headed just down the path of least resistance where everybody else is headed. And like we see where that goes. You know the outcome. You know where that path goes. You've done it a million times. And you don't like it. And it's like if you want something great, you have to swim against the current. You have to head upstream. And the reward is just so much greater. But it's hard. It's just choosing to keep one foot in front of the other, headed upstream. Like there's no space of time where like you're not fighting resistance when you're headed for something great. Like you will constantly be fighting against resistance, but it does get easier. And that's something I realized is like creativity, so long as you face creativity, it's fun. Like it feels good, but getting into it can be fucking hard because you have to give it space for chaos and to organize that chaos, because you're looking at just like little bowls of paint and an empty canvas, and you have to start. Like you could go online and just order a painting that's already done. It's the path of least resistance. Or you could make something yourself. That's going to take a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of your time. It's going to take some of your attention. It's going to be a little difficult. But the end result will be so much more worth it, because every time you look at that finished painting, you'll be like, damn, I did that. I did that shit. Whereas like if you bought a painting, you're like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool, whatever. Versus like your own creation, you're like, I made that. And trust me, like everybody knows that. I don't even have to I don't have to argue that point. Everybody knows it feels better when it's done, but it's hard. It's the same thing with cold showers. Like it's not easy. It's fucking hard the first time you do it. God, this sucks. But then afterwards, you get 4 hours of dopamine. That's fucking awesome. Like that shit feels good. But we all know where the path of least resistance ends up. And I guess it just comes down to like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to be your output? If it's a wasted life where at the end you're like, damn, I wish I would have done this, 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 and this. Like, that's the path of least resistance. That's the fast food. That's just like the consuming. And it's okay to be that person. I'm going to be selling to you. Don't be mad at me when I'm at the top. Like, that's it. Like, don't be mad at the people who are creating. That's kind of wild to think about.
You know what I'm thinking about is Albert Einstein, how he described insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. And I think that's the majority of people. I mean, they're all scrolling on their phones majority of the time, or spending countless hours on movies or series, and they're expecting different results. They're expecting like happiness will come to them, or something, and you ask people, like, everyone wants to be healthy, everyone wants to be fit, everyone wants to be happy, yeah, several areas, but they're not getting there. But they want it, but they're not getting there. And it's like you ask them when they're going to start doing something, and they're like, oh, I don't know, one day, or when this happens I'll do this. But it's like they keep heading down the same path, and they aren't getting to where they want to get to. And to me, it just screams what Albert Einstein said, and it's insanity because
Mhm.
people aren't doing what they should be doing.
He's a genius. Albert Einstein was an absolute fucking genius. He has a lot of quotes that I really, really love. There's one that pertains to the muse, and I think it coincides with a quote from the Tao Te Ching, which is one of the oldest spiritual manuscripts in the world. The Tao Te Ching was written in about 540 BC, and there's a quote from it, and it really coincides with one of Albert Einstein's quotes. And the quote from the Tao Te Ching is, "To the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders." And then there's Albert Einstein's quote, which is, "I think 99 times and I find nothing. I stop thinking. I swim in silence and truth comes to me." And I love that because I think it comes, like, when it comes to creativity, it's being allowed to swim in silence. Like, not having the constant input of like media, of your movies, of your like TV shows, of your social media. It's giving yourself that space of silence to let the muse come through, or God, or creativity, whatever you want to call it. It's that swimming in silence. It's the still mind. Like, if you don't give it that space, it'll never come. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I get it. I 100% understand why it's so hard to swim in silence, because a lot of people fucking hate what's going on up here. They cannot stand the silence because they have yet to face it and face those demons. And it is a fucking hard thing to do because there's a ton of resistance in front of it. There is a lot of resistance in your head that's fighting. When you sit in silence, there is a fucking brick wall of shitty thoughts that you have to get through. But if you get through it, the other side is absolutely beautiful. And it is fucking crazy what comes out of it. It is really cool what can come out of it. And that's the only way you can create, is swimming through that silence. Because most people, what was it? He talks about it in Conversations with God, that there was a study that was done on people, and they gave them the option to sit in a room with no distractions, not their phone, and they had to sit in silence for 15 minutes. If you didn't want to, then you could choose a really quick electrical shock instead. And it was like something over like 80 or 90% of people chose the electrical shock instead of sitting in silence for 15 minutes with their thoughts. They would rather embrace physical pain than being alone with their thoughts. And when I read that, I was like, game on, motherfucker. I've got to be the person who chooses the silence for 15 minutes. Because at the time that I read that, I couldn't handle it, dude. I was so socially addicted, I couldn't be alone. I couldn't handle it. It scared the shit out of me. I was so chronically depressed. I was so like fucked up at the time. But I read that and I was like, I don't want to be one of those people that chooses the electrical shock. Like, I want to see what's on the other side of like handling my thoughts for 15 minutes. And that shit was hard. That took a long time to master. That took months of like spending time alone without my phone, without movies, like setting aside the time to like put everything down. And like the chaos that I had to fight through at first was hell. The shit your mind will say to you, it's the same kind of shit when you're trying to do 1,000 push-ups. That like span where it gets fucking hard, where resistance is like, you're gonna break, something's gonna hurt, you're gonna tear a muscle, something bad is gonna happen. And you have to like keep pushing through. And it's those reps in between, those like to 10, to 15, to 20, like you have to just keep pushing through. And it's that time where you spend alone in your thoughts. You have to push through it. Because that end spot from 900 to 1,000 reps, bro, that's victory. And when you reach that shit, whew, bro, there is nothing that can stop you. There isn't a damn thing in this world that can get in your way after those 1,000 reps. And it's the same thing with allowing yourself space to think for those 15 minutes of silence. There's nothing that can get in the way of your creativity.
Yeah, I mean, you set that goal with the push-ups, and it's so tempting just to give up and go on to something mind-numbing. Move on to a movie or a video game, and
Yeah.
it's so tempting just to give up and do something else. And something I was thinking here is just imagine what would happen if you give someone a good book, maybe some of my favorites, the Four Agreements or Atomic Habits, or, and you sit them in a blank room and they read that book. And then you give them nothing but like a pen and paper for an hour after they read that book. Just imagine what would happen. And I feel like everyone would be different, obviously, in the direction they would go. And maybe some people would just draw, maybe. Some people would write their own book. Some people may write goals on how they would apply that book to their life. But regardless, I feel like the outcome is always going to be great, because if they have nothing to do but that pen and paper after they receive that input, the crazy things that could happen. And you could apply that, I think, with anything in life, is just have that input and then have the space and time to get that output.
Yeah.
And the crazy magic that will happen.
Dude, the Four Agreements is a good one, and so is Atomic Habits. I like
Those are two of my favorites.
Oh yeah, top 5 for sure. Top 5
Sure.
for sure, dude.
Absolutely.
They're healing. They're very healing, and they cultivate like great structure and so much
And they
self-respect.
apply to everyone.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Especially Atomic Habits. Like that book is entirely input-output, and reorganizing and rearranging your input and output, and optimizing it for the output that you want. Because a lot of people be like, I want this thing, but they don't know how to get there. And like Atomic Habits, if you want something, anything in life, it doesn't fucking matter what you want. If you want to get something, read Atomic Habits. Like that's it. You want to feel better about life? Read Four Agreements. And I guarantee everybody falls in both of those categories. Both,
Sure.
not just one, both of those categories.
Those are must reads for anyone.
At least every year. Honestly.
Sure.
Like I loved Atomic Habits, and then upon finishing the book, I read it again because I kind of have this habit of reading books twice now. So I ended up reading it again just because I loved it so much. I was like, shit, that was good, but I didn't get everything I wanted out of it. So I read it again, and I was like, God, this book is good. Four Agreements I've read consistently every year for 4 years now. And I'll read that book to other people. Like, it's so good that I'm like, if you haven't read it, I'll read it to you. People are like, no, I'm good. I'll read it. I'm like, no, you got to read it. Like, it's so fucking good. Because it's one of those ones that, like, you consume it and you're like, damn, I know how to feel better now. Like, I know how to make my life better and feel better about my life. It's a good one. He's got another one, The Mastery of Love. That was also really good. That one was fucking bomb. That one was really good. For your next book, like, up there with Atomic Habits and Four Agreements, for me, is The Alchemist.
It's on my list.
Bro, it's a short read. It's really quick. Like, you'll blast through it in like 1 or 2 days, but you'll highlight the fuck out of it. You'll probably highlight every page. And I just read it because I read it once, then skimmed through it a second time, and then reread it. So I would consider it like my second read, even though like I did kind of somewhat reread it a second time, but I just fully read beginning to end for a second time, and I finished 2 days ago. Bro, that book is so good. That book is so fucking good. That's up there right next to Four Agreements.
There's so many books to read.
I know. I'm so sorry. It's a short read, so if you read it, you'll be done within like 2 or 3 days, and you'll be like, that was worth it. And for me personally, I put it above Four Agreements. That's how good it is for me. And I was told to read The Alchemist 5 years ago. And I didn't until recently. And I'm so mad. I'm so mad I didn't read it 5 years ago. I'm so pissed at myself. I was like, fuck me. Like, why did I read this? This is so good. But it's a good one, man. It's really good. It applies to everybody. Every single person. Way too well. Oh, I wrote a bunch about it. Let's see what I can... I wrote down a bunch of quotes from that book, actually. and I have one that I'll just read to you. Uh, I love this one. This is a really good one. Okay, so this is from The Alchemist. Remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure. You've got to find the treasure so that everything that you have learned along the way can make sense. I'll read it one more time. Remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure. You've got to find the treasure so that everything that you have learned along the way can make sense. This book hits hard, bro. It's so fucking hard.
It's pretty good. I know I heard so many people talk about it, so I'm definitely gonna read it.
What book are you're reading the 4 Hour Body right now?
Yeah.
It's an interesting book.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I got to a section. I was like, whoa, didn't expect that there. But there's a lot of good stuff in it. I'm enjoying it. There's a lot of stuff I don't really agree with. I mean, there's this portion that it talks about how you could, for 6 20-minute naps, you could live off of in a day.
Oh, yeah, the Everyman Cycle.
And I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, Everyman Cycle.
It's insane.
It is
there's
crazy.
A lot of weird stuff like that. It's like, I don't know if I necessarily believe it, but it's interesting.
Yeah, so I was first introduced to the Everyman Cycle when I was a lifeguard. I think I was 17. And I had a buddy that I was working with. I think his name was Steven at the West Y. And he operated on the Everyman Cycle. And it was wild. It was really crazy to see. But he actually functioned really well. But he said the first week was the worst, most excruciating thing he'd ever experienced. But after that, everything just worked. And I was like, not worth it, dude. Not doing it.
Yeah, dude, it's nuts.
Because the idea behind it is you automatically go into REM when you fall asleep for those 20 minutes. And I think it's like every 4 hours or something like that, you sleep for 20 minutes? I think. I can't remember.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, is because they're saying, like 90% of our sleep is just wasted unconsciousness, when REM is what we need. And by doing that, you're just automatically getting that. And I don't know, it's insane. But I could understand, I could feel the pain just thinking about it. I mean, I woke up at 2 this morning and been up all day, and I'm already in pain. Like, I can't adjust to that. Are you kidding me?
That'd be hard.
I don't know.
I'll have to read that one. There's probably a lot in there.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. That's so funny. Everyman Cycle. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, the Everyman Cycle or something like that.
I think that I've read it as the Uberman is how I read it. Uberman.
The what?
Like Uberman.
Uberman? Oh, that's probably what it's called. I probably just fucked up the name all these years.
That's what I think I read it as. I don't know.
Yeah, I probably fucked up the name. I just remember being taught about it when I was lifeguard, and I was like, that's interesting, man. And seeing somebody actually live it, I was like...
Hey, man, if you could do it, how much time you have in a day, though? Shit.
Oh, yeah. See, it's still iffy to me, though. Because it's like, I feel like if you conglomerate the sleep, you actually heal the body in that time. But you may heal in those 20-minute naps. I'm not versed in it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And I haven't tried it, so I can't even speak anecdotally about it. So it might work.
All right, try it this week and let us know.
No, fuck no.
Someone has to.
It's way more chaos than I want right now. Like, I'm already handling enough.
Yeah, you have to. I feel like you have to dedicate yourself, because I feel like that first week is going to be rough.
No, fuck that. That's terrifying. A lot of people. That reminds me of the Goggins challenge. I still want to do that with you sometime. The 4x4x48.
One day we'll get there.
One day, we'll work up to it. We do have to work up to it.
I gotta heal my knees first. I'm still having trouble, so.
They're still janky, man?
That
Fuck.
bad runner's knees. Bad runner's knees. So I just got to heal up the cartilage and then build back up the strength. I'm gonna, just little by little.
Mhm.
It's just healing. Something.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
part of the
shoot, it's
process.
peak muse time. Speak of the devil, the muse showed up. Technically, what is it? From 2 to 3 p.m. today is when the moon is at its peak today. It's at a 40% angle from the Earth's surface. It's not like 90%. It's like over there somewhere.
Interesting.
I know, I know. I pay way too much attention to this. I literally have it scheduled out on my phone. They're like, when is the moon up? When is it down? So that I know exactly where I'm at in that time period. Right now it's peak time. Not like peak full moon. That's not for another 2 weeks. 1 week and a half. I'm excited for that. I know that's weird. I sound like
Mm,
a astrology bitch. Oh my god, are you a
you are.
Gemini? I'm
That's
a fucking
exactly how you
Leo.
sound.
I'm not a Leo. I'm an Aries. I don't know. We'll get into it. All right. Should we talk goals?
Let's talk about them.
Fuck.
Yeah,
Where are they at?
it's been rough.
It has been rough. It has been atrocious. Let's pull them up.
It's Yeah, I had a friend that showed up this week, and so it's just been nuts.
Um,
But I've been trying to get him still. So I
let's see.
guess I'll go through mine. I've been getting my hypertrophy in yoga. I am afraid that my yoga has been affecting my knees
Really?
because I don't know. I'm gonna test it out. I'm gonna try not to like stretch my legs out too much with yoga because I'm just afraid that if you're injured and you're stretching it too much, I feel like it may prolong the injury.
Maybe, yeah.
So I'm gonna lean back on that and I'm gonna try things out to see what healing looks like. But I've been good with my reading, my writing. I've been trying to attempt at least getting a little bit in, but I do need to allow myself more time for that. Creativity. I need to allow creativity. And I've been pretty good with my spiritual life, praying and study, and my relationships. I've been saying hi and expressing gratitude. Have been pretty good. My music, I definitely need to allow more time again with. See, it's the creative things that I am wanting to do better on.
I see that.
But um,
That is interesting. Yeah, you've been
so
good. It's so funny. You're so structured, and the one things you're missing are so structured too. They're like the 3 days that you missed on like those creative aspects. That's so funny.
yeah,
Because mine's a little more disarray of what I'm missing. It kind of shows what like how we live. You live very structured, and I still somewhat live in the chaos. Like of
yeah.
what like how I structure everything. So this is good though. This I like this though. We've been doing good. Um, so let's go through mine real quick. Impact. I'm still hitting every single one of those. So positively impact 3 lives a day. Express gratitude to nature 10 minutes a day. I switched it from gratitude from one person to gratitude in nature every day because I wanted to do that. Been doing good at that. Self love, gratitude journal. I've been consistent at. It's been getting better. Creatine, I get every day. That's just, except for that one day. I had that one day that I missed. And I missed one day of my gratitude journal on the 10th. And then fitness. I yeah, I've been getting my protein in. My active time, I still stretch and like run and whatnot, but I have not been going to the gym. So I am hitting my like fitness goal technically still, which is nice, but because it's only like 10 minutes at least of active. But I've been like slacking so much on my fitness. Um, Business, 10 minutes of website work. I'm doing like 5 hours every day, so that's like knocking that shit out of the park. My 10 minutes of net worth visualization. I did miss 3 days um, like a week ago. And then my reading and writing. That's just, I've been doing pretty good at that. Haven't missed a day on those. So I like these. I like these. So you're still. Well, let's go over reading real quick. Are you still reading the 4 Hour Body?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
I've been pretty good and consistent with that.
Okay. Um, do you want to set a goal on that one for this week or no?
Specific goal for the reading.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like it's been good. Like I've been good with the reading. I've been pretty consistent. I wanna with the writing and music production. I would definitely like this week to dive more and give myself time alone to those to develop those and allow for creativity. So that's kind of a temporary goal. Maybe we should modify a document to allow for like a weekly
Okay.
non-daily goal, just improvement goal. But that's yeah, I want to allow myself more creativity time this week with those two topics.
Throw some coffee in the mix. Just kidding.
I don't do coffee.
Um, I finished The Alchemist again this week, so I need to pick a new book. I'll because I stopped reading that one book that was my favorite, but it was super dark. I might get back at that. We'll see. If not, then I'll just read. Oh shit! There was another Alchemist book written by the same guy. I'd have to go to the local library to get it. I'm gonna try to acquire that book this week. It's called Warrior of the Light. I'm gonna try to get that one and read it. That'll be my goal, my reading goal this week. If I can get that book. If not, I'll get back to trekking through Dead, the dark book,
Oh
the
god.
devil's book.
Nice.
All right, that concludes episode 14 of 2 Minutes to Life. Hell yeah! We'll see you guys next
Yeah,
week.
yeah.